Welcome to the CTO Studio. This week I talk to Oded Cohen. We go deep into the ad tech space, explosive growth, scaling, and we talk about cultural differences in our teams. So enjoy.
I have a wonderful electronic invention I want you to see. It looks something like this.
Welcome to the CTO Studio. I'm your host, Etienne de Bruin. The CTO Studio is where we chat with CTOs building amazing products with incredible teams. Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Welcome to the CTO Studio, Oded Cohen from Nativo.
Thank you.
CTO?
Good to be here.
Thank you for being with me. I almost said you're welcome. Hey, I've seen people fight to be in that chair. No, I haven't. So you're the CTO of Nativo.
Yes.
And you're based in LA.
Yes.
You moved to LA.
Yes.
From a country.
Mm-hmm.
Which one?
Israel.
And was that to start Nativo or to join it, or what happened?
No. I was working in a startup. We went public, like a lot of Israeli companies.
Mm-hmm.
And then an American company acquired us. It was based.
You went public on the
NASDAQ.
On NASDAQ.
Yeah,
okay.
that's typically
What was that?
When?
No, which company?
It was called back then MediaMind.
Okay.
And then an American company bought us for $500 million or something. Pretty good that time.
And you bought 5 sailboats and a rocket ship, and you're done.
I wasn't the CTO back then. I was a director.
Was this Tel Aviv?
Around.
Is that where the technology hub is?
Yeah, it's like the LA metropolitan area. It's bigger than Tel Aviv. It was called Herzliya.
Herzliya.
Yeah.
And what do you miss the most about that town?
The town itself?
Or the vibe? Or
I guess LA is not that different. I do miss, my friends, my family, those kind of things. But the tech environment is not all that different, at least not here in LA. It was different in Dallas. I moved originally to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
In Dallas, it wasn't as a startup mentality. It was more, it could be the company I worked at as well. It was more like a corporate mentality. Here in LA, it feels a lot more like Israel. Maybe it's the beach, maybe it's the weather.
And did you move to Dallas with the acquisition or something else?
A few months after, I was offered a job, a VP position, managing the engineering team there. Moved there, but then realized that I'm a startup guy. I want to, start it all over again. Try to find like a small size, early stage startup that I can join, lead the tech team.
What does that mean? I'm a startup guy.
Means that I like the excitement, the things that are not. I like the fast moving environment. I like to have a meaningful impact on things. Not be afraid taking challenges. In a bigger environment, a bigger company, you have to get approvals for more things. You have to plan a lot of things ahead, or somebody else is planning and you have to execute based on that. I listened to a podcast this morning, and someone described innovation inside of large companies as the white blood cells, that as soon as this new idea comes up, the white blood cells come to destroy that intruder. Yeah.
Did you experience that?
Well, most of my life I worked at startups, to be honest. Yeah. But I did work in one bigger company. And again, the company that acquired us had, I think, a mentality of a bigger company, even though they were not a lot bigger than us originally. And so, I felt, also in startups, you work on the product, you work on the tech, less bureaucracy, less politics, there's a sense of togetherness that is easier to achieve in a smaller company, I think, sometimes. So I felt it was better for me, and I was right.
And this company that was acquired, the
MediaMind?
MediaMind, what was it, an ad tech as well?
Yeah, also.
Wow. So Dallas, you decide, this isn't for me.
yeah, I kind of realized that I spent a year there and realized I should move on and just looked for something. Did something for a few months with a friend from Israel. Tried something on our own, but then found Nativo as an interesting opportunity. Talked to the CEO, was very excited, and decided to move with my family.
And your family being?
Wife, 3 kids, dog.
Was the dog born in Israel?
Yeah.
Does the dog have a visa?
Yeah.
As a South African, I went through immigration, so I relate to. I don't know. Did you came over on an L1 or a?
Well, my wife is, even though she's an Israeli, she was originally born in the US. So it was, I did come on an L1 originally, but, I got a green card very quickly. Immigration was actually very friendly to, at least in my case.
Wow.
It was very easy. All my kids are are US citizens, so it's not.
How old are they? Were they born here?
No, 2 were born in Israel, 1 was born here.
And then how often do you go back to?
Once or twice a year.
Okay. Sort of for family trips and.
Yeah.
And then sounds like you said your family is still there, like friends and families. And
yeah.
So Nativo, you joined as CTO?
I joined as a senior vice president of engineering.
Nice.
But it's really, it's the same job. The title is just...
and at that point, and is that you're still the SVP of engineering?
I'm the CTO now.
Oh, okay.
It's
so
just
there's
a title change.
Okay. And at the point that you joined, did they already have product market fit and customers and all that? Or were you...
We didn't have any product. The CEO was a product guy.
Okay.
And he was also managing the engineering team back then. It was like 15 people maybe. I had 6 or 7 when I joined. Already managed 70 people before, but again, this was for me, it was a great opportunity to go back and put my hands into the tech. So no, there was no product. There was no marketing. There was already sales and kind of some operation. I guess there was marketing, but the guy was doing marketing and strategy and operation all together. So it's just like a typical startup, right? You have one person doing wears a lot of hats. Yes. Same goes in the engineering team. I had 6, 7 people. They were kind of doing multiple things at the beginning.
And so when you say you had sales, was it more like a consulting agency thing then, or?
So our business is, there's 2 sides of our business. One is the publisher. We provide technology so they can monetize their site using native advertising, hence the name Nativo, or sponsor content. And so there's a sales side with publishers, getting them to adopt our technology. Although we call it more BD, business development, because it's not necessarily that the majority of the business is coming from that side in terms of the revenue. The part of the revenue is coming mostly from the advertisers, the people that actually buy and want to monetize those sites or want to put their ads there. So we have a sales team that also goes directly after advertisers. We also, the sales team also work with, now we also, we're beyond just a SaaS platform. We also what we call an SSP, supply side platform. So we have partners that are the buying platforms that serves the advertiser that are bidding into our platform. We auction on behalf of the publisher their inventory. So whoever pays the most can get to serve their ads on the publisher site.
And the publisher's inventory is then typically content, right?
So native advertising, the idea behind native advertising is, as opposed to what we call display banners, is more native to the site in the sense that you go to a site, you go to a news site, CNN.com, whatever. You're looking for articles to read. So as you're searching for articles, you're looking for headlines, right? Preview images, things like that. Then the native advertising will have this format. It will basically be a headline and an image promoting something that is sponsored as opposed to something that is editorial. The interesting part of our solution, which is unique, is that once you decided this is interesting for you to read, when you actually click on it, as opposed to a banner where it will send you to some other site, you can actually read the article on the same site. So it's the true full native experience.
So native being sort of it's a fully baked in integrated experience
In the site, yeah.
And then are you tracking sort of the scroll through and?
So typically in advertising, most companies, they can track only the unit that the user will click on, which is the banners or the video or something like that. Because we actually also serve the content itself, the article, then we actually track a lot of more deeper engagement, like how much time you spend on the page, your scroll depth, how fast you scrolled, what type of interaction you did with the article. Maybe you click from that article to go eventually to some, article advertiser site. So we track a lot of. We have like over 100 metrics that we track.
And is that sort of the value add is, as an advertiser, I can then measure the success of my ads on the publisher site?
I think one of the interesting, so think about it like this. If I'm an advertiser, the question is what you are after. If you're after somebody buying a product, like you're an e-commerce site, then, maybe there's a better way. Maybe you go to Google to, buy keywords. But if you want to influence opinion, if there's a longer sales cycle, if let's say you're a car manufacturer company, right? Nobody buys a car by clicking on a banner. Then you want to expose the user to some interesting content. Now, where do you find your users? You can go to Facebook, maybe. It's actually now more and more expensive. Or just go to where they are. Buy a sponsor article on cars related sites. So, and then think about it. Me as a user, I went to a cars related site. There's articles about, cool features in product, in different cars, whatever. Say I'm Toyota. I have a new feature in some Prius or whatever. Now I'm going to write an interesting article about it, and then I'm going to feature it through my platform. I'm going to promote it and pay the publisher on that. We're going to run it across a lot of different sites like that. As a user, it might be very interesting for me to read because what's the difference really? It's like everything behind all those products, there are companies, but now I know it's sponsored at least, right? It's very clear that it's sponsored, but I get some interesting information. So I'm able to, as a brand, I'm able to influence a potential buyer earlier, what we call in the funnel, not like at the end maybe, where it's like he's already searching for something. That's usually what.
But is there a way for the brand to measure how well their sponsored content did on some publisher's site?
Yeah. So we track everything from obviously people clicking, how much time they read the article, how many people then later went to the advertiser site. We can also track if they register on the advertiser site later on because of it. We also did various case studies to show that you have an exposed group and a non-exposed group, and then you put a survey and you check what is the lift in terms of, am I considering to buy something or how favorable I see that brand, or I consider the brand now. So we've done a lot of that, and that proved to be very, very good. A lot better than banners or display, better than Facebook and other platforms as well.
Is this similar to Outbrain?
So Outbrain and Taboola, by the way, both Israeli firms as well. I mean, we're not Israeli. Are doing something that might look similar. It's basically the bottom of the article. You might be interested in that as well. Their business is mostly publishers and sometimes brands trying to buy traffic into their site. Not necessarily more about the, influencing and providing necessarily a lot of value.
Okay.
So they're not direct competitors, I would say. I wouldn't say there's complete, there's some interesting overlap, but their business is a bit different. So
the advertiser, the advertiser could potentially just go straight to the publisher, right, and say, Toyota could go to cars.com and say, we want to do articles, but you're providing sort of the multi-sided platform
exactly
to bid and to
try to run, one article on one site. Yeah, you can come up with an agreement with a publisher, trying to run it on 100 sites and get the reach that you need to reach a large audience. Plus, we do a lot of other things. We can let you, A/B test things. You can create different headlines, different images, and then our system, through kind of like a machine learning algorithm, will figure out what is actually working better for you, what is driving whatever you want to drive, whether it's click or engagement is better suited. You can create variations of the same content, just with different structure and maybe wording, and you can see how it impacts.
Which leads to my next question, which was, do you know the secret formula for writing the best type of article?
We were just joking about it today. The clickbait. Yeah, just put like a certain type of picture. 5 things. Oh, there's a few things. Those are like the outprint tabula thing usually. This guy thought about that. You wouldn't imagine what happened next. That's kind of the type of,
yes. Oh,
right.
Those are so.
And then you click it, and it's like,
you have to see what happens next.
Yeah. So we typically don't deal with those type of. And that's why, by the way, our publishers like us very much, so much, because we work with like bigger brands, and again, the goal is not to do clickbaits. It's sitting inside a feed of a site. Like, we work with big publishers, so it's not like at the bottom of the article. It could be the third article on the homepage. So we have a team that helps advertise the right things in the right way without making it completely shady, clickbaity. We have high standards in terms of what type of images we approve and those kind of things.
So do you also insert those article headlines inside of an article?
No, we don't do that.
Yeah, because that is so annoying.
Yeah.
I'm trying to read this article, and all I see every 3 paragraphs is some other article I have to read.
Oh, wait. That we might be doing. I thought you meant like, when they highlight words and then when you hover it, it gives you an ad.
Oh, no.
Okay, it is up to the publishers to some degree, what we call a middle of the article. So as you read, there could be in between a promotion to another article. It's possible to do that. It's not very common, but it's not related. Like, for us, we work with the publishers to try and get the best result. And, sometimes we're the one helping the publisher not making bad decisions. But, sometimes, the publishers in general are under a lot of stress, a lot of pressure, because a lot of the money is being channeled now to Facebook, Google, and now Amazon. So they see a lot of
so they are tempted to just...
They are tempted to do a lot of bad things.
And for them, they have to just simply copy and paste snippets into their templates, right?
Yeah, so, it's not easy to be a publisher these days. And I think one of our goals is to help them do the right things. And we do think that native advertising is a better user experience than banners. We don't do things like that Google now blocks anyway, by the way, on Chrome, which is like autoplay sound on. We don't do sticky players where you scroll and then the video player sticks on the right and stays and don't let you go. So we try to be the least intrusive as we can, and the most valuable that we can for the user. We have technology to identify. We partner with other companies on some of those things to identify the context of the article, so we can actually give you a more relevant article. So if you read an article about sports, we might give you something related to that, but not baby diapers, for example, because you searched baby diapers before on Amazon.
I read an interesting article. This was years ago when AOL was acquiring all these web properties and basically putting ads on a bass fishing website for model trains, because they were able to track that people who are into bass fishing are likely also into model trains.
It's possible.
But that was more banner. That was banner advertising. It wasn't.
Yeah.
So your team. So tell me a little bit about CTOing this company.
So, as I said, I was an SVP of engineering. So it's not like the role changed dramatically. I'm still managing the engineering team. I have now 40 people. So the team grew over, the course of about 5 years. I'm obviously working a lot with product. Product is actually a separate team that reports still to the CEO. And
Don't you hate that when that happens?
actually not, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I work very closely with the product, head of product. So we're peers, and it doesn't really matter for me. To be honest, whether he would report to me or not, it doesn't really matter. I think we have good relationships, so that's what matters. And, I'm still a very technical guy, so I'll get involved. I even write code here and there.
But do you deploy it?
Actually, some cases, yeah. I mean, we do have, we're actually moving more and more towards team deploy their own, although we have a DevOps, we're moving more and more towards team deploy their own product. So we're kind of slowly moving towards that as opposed to DevOps. And so, yeah, I do have some legacy stuff that I still kind of help maintain, and, I've deployed it every once in a while. But in general, obviously, I'm not doing a lot of coding. But I am highly involved in a lot of the technical architecture decisions, and not in all teams.
Which would be expected.
Yeah.
Where is all of this going?
You mean with Nativo?
Well, I guess with ad tech, and then Nativo, I suppose.
So
because are people? I know that my brain has a triggered response when I see sponsored content. So, and I'm just wondering if users...
Meaning resentment?
Yeah, or just beware, or there's like a yellow flag. It's very seldomly that so the clickbait things worked on me for a while, and then it's like, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore.
And we actually saw some of that impact. So we saw that originally we only did, you click, you read the article. And there's not a lot of native advertising beyond us. But the publisher wanted to sell, you click, you go to the advertiser site, because it was easier to sell because the advertiser knew how to buy
to measure that.
Yeah. Right. And so what we saw was in the early days is that once publishers started running those things, and they were running it in the same exact places, users were it actually impacted the interaction with our ads as well, which were clicked to read the article in the site because the user couldn't tell. So it's definitely, as more and more companies doing native and more we have bad actors, that's not good for us. But in general, advertising still works. Whether you like it or not, it works. And it's always, if you ask anybody, are you impacted by advertising? No, I'm not.
No, for damn sure you are.
But the reality is everybody's...
the brain can't unsee what it has seen.
Yeah. And look, we do see consistently people clicking and reading the article. So it's not like they click and say, oh, somebody fooled me. And so I think that, there is still a lot of value in that. And, in Facebook, that some of those posts are sponsored, right? But sometimes they're interesting. Not a lot nowadays. Now that, again, it changes over time, I agree. But I actually had a case where I clicked on something that was sponsored that was ours, and I didn't realize it.
Wow.
So, look, and I'm not clicking on ads. Now, I know never to click on banners. I know never to click on the outprint tabula bottom of article at this point because, 99% of the time is just somebody's trying to get me to go to a page that has 20 slides on different pages, and every page has 50 ads so they can monetize it. But
you'll never guess what they look like today.
Yeah. Or they give you an image of some celebrity, and then you have to go through 30 pages to get to it, right? So now the reality is it still works because people are still making money out of it.
Well, and it's a percentage game, right?
Right. So I'm not sure we're necessarily the typical people, but even, again, if you're doing a good job, we have good publishers that are including, things like Wall Street Journal, and that they can create sponsor content that is high quality and that people actually interact with because it's interesting.
Do you think that these sites that are putting their content behind paywalls is that a trend? Is that an experiment? What's happening there? Is it the final desperate Hail Mary, or?
So it's interesting. I actually heard that, at least for New York Times, it actually works pretty well now. I think, when you talk about economics, typically there's the theory of, how do I get the most amount of value from each person? But obviously not everybody is willing to pay the same amount. So you start with a certain price and then you give discounts, and so the early adopters will be willing to pay a high amount of money, and slowly you and then you put some, I don't know, coupons. Most people won't buy it, but then you capture a few more people that are willing to pay lower price, without losing the people that are willing to pay the higher price. So to some degree, it's kind of like that. I mean, it's let me capture from people that are very interested in just reading the content. They value my brand, and they're willing to pay for it. And at the same time, I'm not going to lose the people that are not willing to pay, but then I'm going to monetize them through ads. Think about the gaming industry and micropayments, kind of like the same, right? You give it for free, and then using micropayments, you're getting different values from different people.
Yeah, there's a distinct moment where I feel like the $1.99 that they want from me, the value is super clear. Like I subscribe to the New York Times mobile app because of some promotion. I think it was $7.99 for 3 months or something. Yeah. And I started feeling guilty that I wasn't reading the articles, and now I'm like, it's only $7, but $8, but there's just this weird thing that happens in my brain where I now feel like I almost resent the New York Times because I'm not reading all these articles. I mean, I'm scanning the headlines, but headlines that I feel like I can get anywhere.
I'll give you an example. For me, with Hulu, for example, we've used to have the $10 with ads, and then we realized those ads are annoying, and we can afford that extra $5, and so now we have it without. I did have cases where I've signed in for some sites. The problem, I think, with publishers is that, again, some of them have, so New York Times have a brand name, right? So they can do that. But a lot of the other sites, they're not that important. And people maybe, read 5 or 10 different sites. And paying for all 5 or 10 will be very expensive. So I think it can work for maybe some. I'm not sure it's going to be working for the majority. And to be honest, that's why I tell people, hey, you're doing ads. Well, the reality is, without ads, you won't have free internet. And the whole idea behind the internet is that somebody sends you a link and you can go and you can search the web for other things, and you don't have to go through a paywall for every little article that you read. In order to sustain that business, somebody has to pay. So I think advertising is a good compromise. And if it works, that's fine. The challenge right now, again, is that, the Google, Facebook, Amazon of the world are consuming a lot of that revenue. So now publishers are under a lot of pressure, including good publishers that produce really high quality content, but they are not able to sell the ads at the same amount of money before because somebody else offers it with some other, Google has the data, Facebook has data on the person, or Google has intent. Amazon now has also what you want to purchase or your purchase history. So they have a lot of data. Publishers, they could create some of that. But again, as a single publisher, try to compete with the vast audience or the reach that some of those big tech platform has, it's very hard. So again, it can work for some publishers, but they probably still have to rely on ads.
Yeah, and I think generally publishers are just in the red zone or the yellow zone.
Yeah, I agree. Not easy.
When the new year started, I decided to start using Firefox. And decided to turn off tracking, and holy moly's, sites will not render, man.
Oh,
unbelievable.
Yeah, I didn't know. I mean,
and actually, the worst culprit is Google. And when I go to any like YouTube,
they block.
So much of it gets blocked.
Look, again, I understand the resentment from ads, but again, you have to look at them from the other side. It's like they have to make money out of something, and then what do you prefer they make money out of? Like that's reasonable. Most people won't pay. I
gladly pay the YouTube's premium.
Right, but this is a big tech platform. But again, how many sites you go to? You go to 5 or 10 sites, or somebody just sends you a link. Like Business Insider now has a paywall.
Yes,
and I get links to those. And I just want to read the article. I'm not going to buy a subscription right now. I'm not, but so I understand their business model here, but I'm not resenting that thing. To be honest, we work to find ways for publishers to monetize even people which are blocking ads. So we work towards that as well, because we think that, again, you're using a service from somebody, and that's the way for them to make money. Now, again, I think publishers created some of that problem because they created all that mess, too many ads, bad ads, all those things. So they created some of that problem. But, there should be somewhere in the middle where people are accepting that there's, reasonable amount of ads that are not in their face. They're not cheating them to click on something, which exists as well. Not blasting the sounds off suddenly because some video ad started. So there's some way between that can work for users and work for publishers.
I think if the result of this is the quality of ads increasing, then everyone's happy.
Yeah.
So how are you innovating in this space?
So one of the interesting things about that I learned in the last 2 companies I worked at, especially in startups that are not, have an exit within 2 or 3 years or something, is that you come up with a good idea, which Nativo kind of pioneered that area of native advertising, even before the name native advertising existed. And you build it, you're kind of the first to market, you get good adoption. At some point, the market, reacts. Then all the followers comes in. Some are bigger, some are smaller. And then now it's a competition. If you stay in that situation, you end up, you won't be able to continue and grow as a company. And eventually you'll just be one of the others. Now, the challenge is that was your core thing as a company. And it's very hard to suddenly, as a startup, which is already limited resources, put effort in investing in a new line of product or something almost like a mini startup within your company. And what I learned is that you have to make those decisions at some point, because otherwise the growth curves will kind of die out and then you'll die out with it. So what I like about Nativo, which also happened in my previous company, is that, that's kind of in the core blood of our CEO, the understanding of that. And then he was pushing a lot around, okay, how do we innovate? Where do we go next? Using our strength and what we do best. And then so we did, in the last year and a half, effectively started two new lines of product. One is more public, one is not officially public yet. One is more for the brands, and focus on content and making them understand how their content is working. So one of the interesting part is that brands write a lot of articles. They write a lot of content nowadays. Usually they put it on their site and then they try through social media or something to get people to interact with it. But it's not as easy as it used to be before, because Facebook changed their algorithm. Now it's more expensive. And to be honest, they don't even know what content works better for their brand. Like, they don't know what article maybe is driving most people to register for something. So we have a product that allows them to do that on their site. They, we crawl all their sites. We know what all the articles that they have, all the videos that they have. We know all the social stats about them. We know everything that is happening on their site. And then we can tell them, though, which of those articles are typically driving more people doing something they like.
Wow.
And the interesting part of it, why is it important for us, is that if we identify for them that this article is really doing well proportionally, why would you just amplify it? Yeah. Maybe it's not getting enough attention. Maybe it's like 1 out of 10 users that read it are registering your site, but it's not getting enough attention. Now use Nativo's platform to just, amplify it across publishers.
But the ability for you to scan my site as a brand and say, this is what we recommend, this has a something score, you should probably amplify it, or that's fantastic.
Yeah. And
so that's one of your innovations, is to help brands understand what content is somehow good content.
Yeah.
leveraging all your years or data, all the data you have.
All the huge investment that you made creating all that content. Understanding even what content you have on all your sites. Some of those brands have multiple sites in multiple regions, countries. And so we can actually aggregate it all to one place. Very cool platform. Also visually very exciting to kind of play with it. And so it is getting a lot of good, feedback. And so that's one area around the brand. And, it's almost like theoretically could be a new line of business, completely new company, but it kind of completes our overall offering around content and content marketing, which is what we are very strong at compared to some of our competitors. So that's one part. And it's official, it's launched, and it's like
is it called Nativo?
It's called Content Q.
ContentQ.com.
Yeah, it's part of Nativo. It's under the Nativo.com, but there was a decision to have like a different brand name for that part of the product.
Is it possible to, I know if I look at social media platforms like Buffer and these things, which is obviously a B2C play, I think, or BuzzSumo.
Okay.
Is it possible to have your system identify articles on other sites that if you were to repurpose that content, that it could potentially benefit you?
So we, one of the things that we offer in the platform is scanning and, seeing what content each brand has, we can do without anybody's permission. I mean, it's
public web, yeah.
Right? So we typically also scan multiple relevant competitors. So we can show you what is your competitors are doing. We can show you some of the stats. We can obviously, if you didn't put our tag on your site, we don't know the stats on the site, but we do know how those articles are doing in social media. So we can provide you more on overall the market. We can give you benchmarks and things like that. So that's kind of what we're doing right now with that. I mean, but there's obviously a lot of way to move forward with that in other areas, and so
I really like the scanning. I feel like that is a truly sort of next level innovation, because your defensible space there is the data that you've amassed on what works and what doesn't work, and now you're just packaging that.
Yeah.
Can you tell me a bit about your infrastructure, like how you're building it and then how you're scaling? Because I have a couple friends in the ad tech space, and they seem to always be scaling. It's crazy.
Yeah. So definitely ad tech is a lot of, like, the majority. The biggest challenge is scale. You're talking about our platform is handling billions of calls a day and generates terabytes of data a day. And so there's interesting challenges around that. Interestingly enough, it's very similar though between ed tech. So the fact that we're native and we do have our own interesting challenges because we are native and because we're dealing with content, but the scale challenge is very similar. The fact that we auction, so we get a call and we have to auction it to 10, 20 bidders or whatever and wait before we reply. And so that's also an interesting challenge around scale, because you get 1 billion calls, but that translates into 20 billion calls that you have to make yourself. Our tech on that side of the business, we're a Java stack, relying on async IO processes or mechanisms, so we can leverage the servers with more requests per second. We build the system is built fully distributed, so you can add more servers you want. You can add more servers in different regions of the globe. We're running on AWS. We're
using Terraform, or
we run on. We have auto scaling, so it's actually very interesting. It's very cool to see. I mean, I came from previous company. There was AWS just started, so we were hosting our own servers, and there was no auto scale. You had to buy the servers and everything. And being now, it's seeing how the system reacts during the day, during the night, big campaigns, small campaigns, how the system automatically adds and removes servers. It's pretty cool. So it's all built in. We heavily you have to rely on strong caching layer. We use a product called Aerospike, which is also Aerospike.
Okay.
Extremely common in ad tech.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do some publicity. This is like a very fast key value storage. Has cross data center replications. So, you save entity in one place, it goes to another region automatically. Sub-millisecond. So read writes is on the average 400 microseconds or something like that.
400 microseconds. And generally, that's a pretty expensive layer, right?
So it's not cheap, obviously. I mean,
but it's comparably, I find that if you're using managed caching, it's
not managed. I mean, the product is we have to pay a license, but we manage that ourselves inside.
Okay, so you license
in that level of performance. The servers actually have to be next to our ad servers. They can't have them somewhere else. We actually typically people recommend you for redundancy purposes to put some servers on one availability zone in AWS and some server on another availability zone in it. The problem is if you try to do that with that type of caching layer, you're going to pay for network and you will not get the sub-millisecond. So what you do is you put everything in a given region, you put in one availability zone, you just have redundancy between regions, or you create a separated pod in another availability zone. But everything has to be very close as possible together to achieve that performance. So we do that. Even with that, because in the scale that we are, there's a lot of different metadata and entities that we have to use in order to make a decision on a single call. So even with sub-millisecond, you still don't want to call for every entity on every call. So you still have some caching layer inside that is smart inside the servers themselves. Obviously, that's a smaller, limited amount, but it's significant because, even if let's say you keep an entity for 10, 20, 30 seconds in memory. Those 30 seconds, you use that entity, tens or hundreds of thousands of times. Instead of calling your caching layer outside, it's still faster, a lot faster. You reduce the load from your caching layer. So you have 2 layers of cache, one inside the server, one outside. Still, the outside still gets, bombarded with a lot of requests anyway, but it's still, can save costs, can get you better performance.
But then the balance between what you keep in memory for 30 seconds and then the cache outside the system, I mean, that's got to be interesting.
There's certain type, you have to, by the way, that's also the dirty secret. People think that, you're just going to, throw a few more servers or, add some memory or more CPU and I'm going to solve my scaling issue. No, either you're going to spend tremendous amount of money or you're not even going to solve the problem. You still have to think about what you're doing. And that's kind of like the dirty secret about, cloud doesn't solve the problem and all the amazing products, key value storages, NoSQL, all the products that have evolved in the last 10 or 15 years, you still have to think about what you do. So there's certain entities that there's no point in caching inside the server memory because the amount of entities that exist are just too large, and the likelihood of you hitting the same entity again is so minute that it's not worth it. But there are certain entities that while you don't want to keep them all the time in cache because eventually it's going to be too large, if you keep them for a certain amount of time, then you're going to get huge impact. So again, there's you have to think about how you do things.
And is your general cache expiry rule time-based?
So there's a few ways to do it. So in ad tech, so let's say I launch a campaign and then I came and said, oh, I want to change the headline of my ad. Does it really have to happen the minute I press save, or it can happen after a few seconds? Doesn't really matter. Does it have to happen in all the servers at the same time, or can it propagate in a few seconds all the servers have it? So one of the benefit of, or the interesting part of the ad tech or serving ads is that you do have that opportunity to do that, which gives you some flexibility in how do you build some of those solutions. So there's a few options. Option one is somebody updates something, and then you blast all the servers and tell them, hey, this entity has changed, refetch it. Now, you probably should be very careful with that because you don't want all the servers all together suddenly do that, right? So maybe you add some randomness so that the servers are not fetching all at the same time. But at the same time, do you really bother with telling all the ad servers and be bothered with bombarding them with those messages all the time? What if every few seconds, every 10, 20, whatever, they refetch it anyway? Does it matter? It probably doesn't matter. And then you avoid having to build another piece that you have to maintain. So that's another option. Yeah. In our case, we have like a range. And again, you have to have randomness. It's critical to have randomness. If not, you get spikes. So each server fetches it in different time. And then both the load on your caching layer is more aligned. You want flat lines. You don't want spikes. And then if one server is a bit struggling, the rest are not, then it's overall the performance is good. Or one request is struggling, but the other requests on that server are not. There's a lot more complexity.
No, of course.
It's
I love it. No, I love these discussions. So are you basically, do you have VP engineering? Do you have DevOps people? So
I don't have a VP engineering. I actually am effectively the manager of that engineer. I have directors. So I have like 4 or 5 teams and directors, and they're very strong technical. They grew up either inside the team or that was their core. So they're, all our team is very technical, including the managers. I do have a DevOps team as well. But no, I don't have a VP engineering. At this point, I think that's almost redundant. To be honest, I mean, as a CTO, you can decide where your attention is. My attention is a lot more inbound than outbound, to be honest. And I like it. I like technology.
Is more inbound?
Inbound into the company.
How do you make sure that you aren't missing what's coming over the hill? So
first of all, again, I think my team itself is, a lot of the innovation is also coming from the team, not just from me. But obviously, I read, I go to places. So, but I'm very focused on the company. Not necessarily. I mean, it's the first time I do this. podcast or something. Obviously.
How's it going?
Pretty well. I should ask you, right? How is it going?
I love it. I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So, I think that again, I have smart people in my team. They're also, and it's not even the managers. I mean, a lot of the interesting decision and suggestion came from the team itself. Now, I think I'm good at challenging some of that and making sure that we're making the right decisions.
Is that your Israeli roots?
Probably.
What is the number one cultural characteristic that you bring to the team that it makes the team a better team, but frustrates the hell out of them?
I'm very straightforward, right? So you knew what I was going to say, right? So yeah, I'm like...
South Africans are blamed for that as well.
Yeah, so I actually think that for tech, that's why I think Israel works really well in tech, because you actually can have a lot of good, interesting ideas coming from different levels. So I had cases in other companies that, in Israel, like you sit with a CEO, it doesn't matter if you're like just an engineer. I mean, it's not just like one of the employees, and you think that it's wrong, and you can say, I think you're wrong, and this is why, and whatever. In Israel, you're going to yell as well, but I'm just kidding. But it's not being perceived as something bad. I mean, look, you obviously need to do it in a polite manner, but the idea is to hear what people think. And I think for tech, that's like super important.
Do you think that your pushback and the way you approach your team, I'm assuming that some of them find it harder to work with someone like that and have left, and some people have found it hard to work like that but have grown and have become better for it. Is that what you've seen? And maybe not specifically Nativo, maybe just like
Interesting. I didn't think about that. I do try to control some of that, obviously. But as I tell some of the idea is that I think you need to understand what your weaknesses are, or what like things that you need to be aware of. I think and I hope my team is aware that while I can be, very vocal and obviously have, strong opinions about things, I also, there's no hard feelings. Like we're talking about technology, and if somebody has a better idea, I think I'm very good at giving credit to people. Maybe not. I mean, I got this from some people saying that I'm a lot of time focusing on the bad.
Amazing,
right? Because whatever works well. I mean, yeah, why would I put my attention there? It worked well, but so I tend to focus on the things that are not working well, and then I put a lot of my energy there. But I don't know if people are aware, but whenever somebody will come up with the idea, whenever I talk about it, from not with them, even from outside my team, I'm so happy to say that it's not like that it's coming from my team. I think that's like, for me, it's like the best thing that people from my team gets the credit for that. Because if the team is doing well, I'm gonna get the credit overall anyway. So I don't really need that. So I think that I really and again, I don't know. I mean, I hope people are aware of that. But
no, I understand. As a South African CTO, I had a team of mostly Americans, and we were a young startup. And I'll never forget. I had a moment. I took them on a retreat, so the engineering team can just like breathe a bit and bond. And it was the third or fourth time I did that. And on the first night, we had this huge argument, and it exploded because I was asking for my team to collaborate on a new idea, and they said basically in no uncertain terms that it doesn't matter if we collaborate with you because you're just gonna do what you want anyway. And my whole house of cards, this beautiful collaborative thing that I thought I was building, came tumbling down for me. And I realized I was living in my own little world of thinking that I'm this collaborative servant leader, and my team was perceiving me completely differently. And I had this moment, and I talk about this a lot. We were in the kitchen of this house, and I was on the one side of the kitchen, and they were all on the other side. And it was like open season. Open season
after you.
And it was a seminal moment in my growth as a leader, and to understand that my team, usually when there's a confrontation, I see it as a great thing, and I start engaging, and I speak louder, and I wave my hands more. But there's many people on my team who are, when there's conflict, they withdraw.
They retreat. Yeah.
And so that was a tough enlightenment for me.
Yeah. So again, I'm aware. And so I think that I am trying in certain situations, especially when I recognize certain people are a bit more kind of reserved to themselves. But overall, at least as far as I'm aware, it is working well. And
I love it. Well, Oded,
that's it.
I mean, I feel like this was just the intro.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you my questions. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
This was amazing. Thank you very much for coming out and joining me last minute. And this was really interesting.
Great.
Thank you.
It was great. Thanks.
Have you chatted with a CTO lately? Hi, thank you for listening to the CTO Studio. If you don't mind, take a quick second and please rate and review the show. It helps us a lot. Go to the ctostudio.com for more information on what we're doing at 7 CTOs. We also have a video or two for you that could be a helpful resource for you as you're managing your company. So thank you for listening.